When I was 17 or 18, I was driving home from a friend's house after a movie marathon. It was around 1 a.m. when I left and I had a decent drive to go. Not quite halfway, my gas light came on. I had had a few creepy catcall experiences at gas stations and was a little paranoid stopping that late in the middle of nowhere as a 110-pound teenage girl. In the end, I think if I wasn't so cautious, I would have been kidnapped, or worse. The first gas station I came across was well lit and in a pretty open space. I drove up to the pump and looked around my car mirrors before getting out. As I was starting to pump gas, this normal-looking guy comes out of the gas station shop and starts smoking a cigarette. The pump kept clicking off and not working, so I started messing with it, trying to get it to pump. This guy starts watching me, laughing. I assumed that he was laughing to himself, watching a teenage girl trying to pump gas. After maybe a quarter of a gallon, I gave up and I moved to a new pump. After this point, if I didn't do absolutely everything I did, I would have been screwed. When I got back into my car, I locked my doors just to drive to the other pump. I checked all of my mirrors before getting out or shutting off my car again. It was an old 90s Beetle that didn't always start right away. That's when I saw the guy walking up to my car. He was smiling, walking up to the driver's side window. Not wanting him next to me, I rolled down the passenger window. He paused for a moment, and then smiled to himself and walked to the passenger window. He stuck his head all the way inside my window to talk to me. "Hey, I know this seems really weird, but I promise I'm not a creep or anything. My car broke down." He points to a red SUV, "and I need a ride home. It's just a half-mile up the road." "Sorry, but I don't know you." "Oh no, I totally get it. I thought it was pretty weird as I was walking up here, but it's only half a mile up the road. I'm totally stranded." "I wish I could help you, but I really don't know you." "Yeah, I got you. If you had a truck or something, I would offer to ride in the back." "Sorry, no." All of a sudden, he looked pissed. He yanked at my door, but I had locked it before. And then he reached for my inside door handle through my window. My car was still running and I slammed it into first and peeled out as he opened the door. The car taking off slammed it shut and I sped off. I called the police after I had got away. They looked at the gas station cameras and right after I left, he got into his red SUV and drove off. If I had unlocked my doors the second time, I would have been screwed. If I let him come to the driver's side window, he could have grabbed me. If I had shut my car off, I wouldn't have been able to drive off in time. If I didn't double check my mirrors, I would have been outside my car when he came up to me. I remembered something that had happened to my best friend and I a few years ago and figured that I might share it here. While my best friend at the time and I were seniors in high school, around 2016, we went on a weekend trip to visit my grandmother a couple hours away from my town in Georgia. The town that we lived in was comparatively small for the state, but one of the biggest towns within a few hours. But we had to travel about 2.5 hours through tiny, somewhat redneck towns to get to my grandmother's place. We were on our way back home when we had to stop at a gas station, literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking cornfields, cotton fields, streets with no signs or lights, not even stop signs, and definitely no cell service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had maybe a couple snacks inside, but looked deserted from the outside. No other cars or people in sight, and we didn't bother to get anything other than gas. I paid with my card mainly because I didn't want to leave my 5'1", 100-pound friend alone in the car while I went inside alone. Another car pulled up on the other side of the single gas pump while I just started pumping gas. and because of everything I had read on this subreddit, I always had a weird feeling and decided to stay alert and stand outside of the car with my driver's side door open so my friend could see and hear everything going on. A thin, late 50s-ish older man got out of the car and seemed to be paying at the pump and standing beside his car while he got gas. But after a few seconds, he walked around the pump and maneuvered himself around my car door to stand within a foot of me and asked if he could pump my gas for me. Luckily, the gas nozzle was locked, so it was pumping without me having to hold it, and I immediately placed myself between the opening of the door and the man, and prepared to either shut the door with me inside it, or move and slam it behind me to protect my friend if necessary. I calmly told him that it was fine, no thank you. He looked me up and down with the corner of his lip tilted up and said, "Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone, and you definitely shouldn't have to do this by yourself. Let a man help you, baby." And he covered my hand with his own as he reached for the gas pump that I was holding. I jerked my hand out from underneath his and slammed my car door shut, thinking the last thing that I wanted him to do was jump in my car and drive away with my friend in the passenger seat. Orange flags started tinting red, and my usual overly polite demeanor turned serious as I remembered something that I had read here that said it was better to be safe and to seem mean rather than be polite and uncomfortable. So I responded and said, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own gas and I've already said no thank you. Leave us alone." He didn't move, only raised his chin and managed to make eye contact with me, all lip tilt gone. I stared him down and figured that I'd gotten enough gas to last us enough time to get the hell out of wherever we were, so I maintained eye contact, pulled the nozzle out, and basically threw it back onto the pump before getting in my car, and drove away before he had even moved. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview and saw that his car wasn't even being filled up with gas, telling me that he was driving by and decided to help a damsel in distress out. My friend was shaking the whole way home, telling me that she would have just let the man pump her gas, but I'm just glad some of the confidence that I had gained from this sub helped me stay attentive and respond confidently enough to get out of the situation. On Memorial Day of this year, I started working at one of the 2 gas stations in my small New Hampshire town, which is about 20 miles outside of our state capital. My town is basically the last line of civilization for about an hour if you're traveling on the highway, so we get a lot of traffic. We also have a lot of regulars. We have people we know by name and people who we may not know the names of, but we recognize them and the transaction will go a lot quicker if I just ask, "Do you want your cigarettes today?" Or "Which scratch ticket are you thinking about getting?" Most of these regulars are very kind to us. One even threatened to beat a guy up who came in and tried to grab my coworker's hair when his card was declined. The person involved in the story was supposed to be one of those nice people. He was a guy whose name I never knew. He mostly came in during 3rd shift and I usually saw him when I was about to leave. I work 2nd shift. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Matty. He was always very pleasant and would always strike up a conversation with whoever was checking him out. The one that I remember most vividly was us talking about all the reboots and sequels Hollywood keeps churning out. I want to work my way into the film industry someday and become either a writer or a director, and we were talking about how I could start putting an end to the sequel fatigue. Yesterday night, I was cashing out my drawer after 3rd shift had checked in and was on his drawer. We had both been off for 3 days and we were trying to catch each other up on what had happened over that time. It was all gas station related things like how someone had reported that the bathrooms were gross, instead of asking someone to clean them, and how one of the pumps had a card reader issue. Suddenly, the 3rd shift guy brings up this open murder case. A woman from the town about 30 minutes up the highway had gone missing a while back, and then had been found dead in a washing machine that had been crudely dumped into a pond. He then brings up the fact that Maddie was a prime suspect in the case. Maddie was a bit of a druggie, to put it lightly, and had some shady connections. Evidently, there is a rumor that he was into some messed up stuff on the dark web, and had some very brutal connections through there. I knew Maddie had a drug issue, as he had told said third shift guy and one of my second shift coworkers about some of his rehab experiences, but I had no idea about these shady connections. One of the third shift guy's friends had also been put through the ringer by the cops, as he had gone out with the victim on a date only 2 nights before her disappearance. He wasn't ruled a suspect after a lot of questioning and looking through the evidence. Maddie evidently told the other third shift worker that he was going out of town for a little while a few nights ago. I don't know if that part is true or not, as it was passed on to me by a second shift worker who likes to gossip about everything she can. If it is true, I would definitely think that he had something to do with it. When my dad told me that I would meet some whacked individuals working this job, I believed him. I think this just cements that statement even more. This happened a year or so ago, so forgive a lack of specific detail. One day after work around 4 or 5 p.m., me and a girl that I worked with decided to go see a movie. It was a rough shift and her and I felt like a movie would be nice. She asked if we could stop by her house so she could change clothes from our work uniform, and I said that was fine, since it was maybe 5 minutes away tops. We stayed at her house for a bit. We ate a quick snack and then we got in my car. She asked if we could stop by the gas station by her house so she could grab a Red Bull. And once again, I was fine with that because it was right by her house. I drove to the gas station and the only parking was on the side of an abandoned car wash next to the gas station. To form a better image, the gas station and car wash were right next to each other, both entrances facing the same way. It was entirely dark outside. The gas station was a fairly run-down one, and didn't have any lights at the gas pumps like most do, so it was pitch black except for the light coming from my car. A semi-truck was on the side of the gas station, and it had cones indicating the area that would inhibit the driver to do what he needed. So I assumed the parking spots wouldn't be too close and I parked. My friend got out and went inside. I decided to stay in the car, since she would only be a few minutes. I locked my doors after she got out, as it was a force of habit to do so. I went on my phone for a bit, and after a couple of minutes I saw a light flash on in the driver's side mirror of my car. I turned to look since it was pointed in my direction. The truck driver had a flashlight pointed at my window, and just held it there for a few seconds, maybe 20 or so. I was kind of freaked out, but I assumed he had a reason for doing so. He then began walking towards my window, still with the flashlight on. I rolled down my window no more than an inch, assuming maybe he was just going to tell me to move my car. He stopped when he got 2 to 3 feet away from my window, and then he turned around. At this point, I was pretty scared, just because there was no reason for what he did. So I just rolled my window back up and waited for my friend. I'm still watching the guy just in case, and I see him rummage around in the front part of the semi-truck for a bit, and then he stopped and turned back to my car. There was something in his hand. I'm not sure what, and I'm glad that I don't know. He began walking towards my window. He was saying something inaudible, and it was at a rather loud volume. He got to my door this time and tried to open it. He tried to pull the handle a couple times, but he couldn't open it, and then he started to pull more aggressively. My friend luckily came out of the gas station and was walking towards my car. She looked scared. I was scared, and the guy saw her coming to my car, and he walked quickly back to his truck and I drove away as quick as possible. I'm not entirely sure what happened or what was going to happen. The only theory my friend had was that maybe when he saw that I was a girl, the first time that he had the flashlight, he assumed that I would be a good target to kidnap or put into something worse. That's just a theory though. I'm glad I won't ever have to find out what he was doing. This isn't too climactic, but it did open my eyes to what people are capable of doing. So, one day about 2 years ago, I was at my house with my younger sister and our friend. We were about 20 and 21-year-old females. We were hungry and we decided to go out and get some sushi. On the way to the restaurant, I noticed that I was low on gas, so I stopped to get some. I pulled up the pump and parked the car. I went into the gas station to pay while my sister and our friend waited in the car. As I was walking across the parking lot into the store, I noticed a man staring at me with a creepy smirk on his face. We made eye contact and he yelled across the parking lot, "Hey beautiful, why aren't you smiling?" I didn't respond or even acknowledge him. However, a young woman who witnessed this said to him, "Do not tell her to smile. She doesn't have to do anything to you." To this day, I think about that woman. I thanked her and continued to walk into the store. As I stood patiently in line, the same man walked in. He came right over to me in line and started to touch me. He was rubbing my arms and lower back and I pulled away. I said loudly, "Get away from me, I don't know you. Don't touch me or I'll defend myself." Other customers and the cashier were watching us and I caused a scene. He whispered in my ear and told me to shut up so people didn't think that he was a creep. Suddenly, the man ran out of the store into my car with my sister and friend still inside of it, so I ran after him. He opened the car door and started to say something to them when I yanked him back so hard from his shirt collar and I punched him in his face. He proceeded to call me every other name in the book, but he left us alone and got in his car and drove away. I'm much more aware of my surroundings now. So, this was 2 years ago on Halloween. I had just discovered this sub about an hour ago and decided to post my own encounter. My best friend and I were leaving a club in Dallas and we stopped at a gas station to pick up some snacks and refreshments. This guy comes up to me and tells me that I look pretty. At this point, I'm drunk and I'm not worried about a dang thing, so I thank him, smile and continue looking for munchies. He starts to follow me through the gas station, but I kind of shrug it off. Me and my friend Pan are walking out when he comes up behind us and asked where we're going. At this point, I'm thinking, screw off, dude. We say curtly that we're going home and he seemed to take the hint, and he screwed off. We started to walk down the street. My friend was planning on driving us home in my car since I was unfit to drive. My friend wasn't 21 yet, so he hadn't been drinking. We were about 3 blocks from my car when we noticed a car driving really slowly behind us. We glanced back a few times and realized that it's the guy from the gas station following us. We decide that it's not a good idea to lead him back to my car, so we turn around and walk a different way back towards the street where the clubs are. He makes an illegal U-turn and follows us. He then rolls down his window and shouts to us asking if we need a ride. And politely I say, "No thank you, we're good. We just made a wrong turn." But he continues to follow us. We speed up our pace a bit and he speeds up too. He calls out to us again through the passenger window asking again if we want a ride. I tell him to please stop following us or I'm gonna call the police. He then calls me every name in the book and he speeds off. Luckily after that, he left us alone.